This work will chew you up and spit you out and not even think twice about it. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and it still kicks my butt.
From This Week in Trucking, this is Profit Per Mile, and I'm Amy. Today we're joined by J.R. Elrod from 𝗲𝗏 Transportation, who not only runs specialized freight but also handles dispatch, keeping loads moving when routes change, weather hits, or other plans fall apart. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. J.R., how are you doing, and how did you get into trucking? Let us know, please.
Well, I'm doing well. We've been pretty busy here the last couple of weeks, and it looks like it's fixing to get even busier for us. The weather hasn't really cooperated on a lot, so everything's been pushed back, and since the weather's starting to get a little nicer right now, we're starting to get pretty busy. How'd I get into trucking? Well, I got out of the Army, didn't really know what I wanted to do. A friend of mine said, hey, come over here, ride around with me for a little bit until you figure out what you want to do, and then you can go do it. At least you're making a little bit of money. Well, I'm still riding around. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. So, that's my story pretty much in a nutshell. I've had 3 jobs since I was 17 years old. United States Army. I worked for my buddy, and then I've worked for myself. So,
And how is it that you ended up wearing the dispatcher hat?
well, as co-owner of this company, I wear all kinds of hats. I mean, I do sales, I do dispatch, I do whatever is required of me. I still go out and drive. So I wear quite a number of hats around here.
Can you tell us just a little bit about how 𝗲𝗏 Transportation started?
Well, my wife and I, we've operated our own companies one way or another, whether it was just me by myself or I've co-owned a couple other companies that I have since bailed on because the other owners didn't have integrity and they were always lying and what have you. And I just don't stand for that. So my wife and I decided that we were going to do it again by ourselves. And so 𝗲𝗏 Transportation was born, and we haven't looked back. I mean, we've gone up, we've gone down, but we're still here.
Now, I wanted to ask you, considering our audience is mostly small carriers, for an owner-operator who's running under their own authority, what's the biggest difference between running standard freight and going into heavy haul?
Well, that's really a tough question. But look, standard freight, almost anybody can do it. Anybody. It's pretty easy. You back up to a dock, they load you, you drive away, or kind of a flatbed regular style load is about the same thing. You throw some straps on, maybe a tarp, maybe a chain or two or whatever, and you just get gone. Pretty basic. But oversized, that's a whole different game. First, you got to know how to look at the freight to figure out where it needs to go on the trailer. Not just somewhere on the deck, exactly where, so you can get the right wing distribution. Then you have to decide which chains to use, 3/8, 1/2 inch, how many, because it's got to be legal and safe going down the road. Then, once you're loaded, now you're reading permits. You got your permit book out, you've got your permits out, you're comparing, making sure that there's no mistakes made on it. And that's just the start of it. Do I need a pilot car? What are the curfews in this town that I'm loading in? What are the curfews elsewhere? And I mean, exactly what's the route? Because you can't just use a GPS to go from point A to point B anymore. You have to go by what the states say. So there's a lot of stuff involved with oversize and overweight that just not anybody can do. You can't just throw a rookie out there in one of my trucks and expect the load to get from point A to point B the correct way.
If I'm just a person who's hauling normal freight, what's some type of equipment that I need to think about before even going into specialized freight? If I want to go to heavy haul, what's the first piece of equipment I would buy?
Well, let's see. First off, the big thing isn't the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's your mindset. That is the first thing. Do you have the patience and the common sense to do this kind of job? Because it takes both. It takes common sense and patience. Because if you don't have those, you might as well go pull a van or a flatbed, because you're going to do nothing but get yourself hurt or get somebody else hurt. Plain and simple. Now, once you figured that out, the right equipment, you got to figure out what kind of trailer you're going to pull. You're going to pull step deck. You're going to pull RGN. If you're going to pull RGN, how big of an RGN are you going to pull? How big of, you have to figure out what kind of weights you're going to pull. We used to have RGNs. We don't have them anymore because we decided that the rates were too cheap. They weren't paying enough. So we got out of it and just went strictly with our step decks. But the equipment that somebody would need would be 3/8 and 1/2 inch chain, ratchet binders, shackles. You'll need some straps. It just, again, it depends on what kind of oversize you're going to get into. There's, the basics are oversized signs, flags, a good GPS that can be programmed. That's just kind of the basics. Most of the bigger stuff that we haul, we have learned over the years what we're going to need. So we might do something like, we've got a new customer coming up that we're going to be hauling some stuff for. We're taking what we think we're going to need. But if that's not the case, then we have to stop what we're doing, run out, pick up what we need, come back and load it right.
I loved the mindset part for sure. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And with our guys that we have here, that's one of the first questions that we ask them is, what's your mindset? And if we don't think their mindset is where it needs to be, we don't hire them, because our job is dangerous. Yeah. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter. Overall, trucking is pretty safe-ish. But when you get into stuff like what we do, you have to know that one wrong move, either loading, unloading, or even driving, you're going to hurt yourself or kill yourself or somebody else.
Could you give me a short example of what you would say is not the right mindset, or any example you've lived in your experience of someone who you...
Yeah, that's actually a pretty simple question. I know it all. No, you don't. You think you know it all, but once you get out there, you figure out real quick, you do not know it all. You can't know it all. I know guys that have been in this business for 40 years, and they do stuff twice as big as what I do, and they've done this the entire time they've been driving, and they will tell you, I do not know it all. I ask questions. If you're not willing to ask questions or take critique, this is not the job for you.
Now, moving on with our questions, what would you say are the most common mistakes you see small carriers make when they try to jump into heavy haul too early? First off, it can be that what we just mentioned about being know-it-alls, and you think you can just jump into heavy haul.
And that's where most guys make their biggest mistake. But first off, trying to do the job with inexperienced drivers, or even if you're a one truck outfit and you're trying to do it and you're not experienced at it, and you don't have somebody around, a mentor or somebody around that can kind of help you walk through it, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Second, trying to fake it to make it. You can't. You can fake it a little bit with the smaller stuff, like the 9 and 10 foot wide stuff. You can probably fake it pretty well until you kind of get the hang of it and get away with it. But when you get into the 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 foot wide, overweight stuff, you can't fake that. You can't. I have seen carriers running in Texas whenever I'm going somewhere at night, and I have seen 12 and 13 foot wide loads going down the road with no signage, no nothing, and the drivers are just going. That's illegal and unsafe. Back in the 90s, people could get away with it because it was a totally different era for trucking, and you could get away with it, but not these days. You just can't fake this work anymore.
Talking about this, like the times changing and things that were allowed before but are not allowed now, how does permitting work for oversized and overweight loads? And what should a one truck carrier absolutely understand before their first permitted run?
the first thing you got to know is where are you going to get your permits? Us here at BAR, we do our own permitting. We go through each individual state and we do our own permitting. We have learned over the years that number one is quicker. Number two, we can kind of adjust routes where we need to adjust them because we do this a lot and we know, let's just say we're going from Dallas to Atlanta. Okay. We do that 5 or 6 times a year. So we know which, where we need to go and where we need to stay away from. So we can actually route ourselves. A new guy, they're not going to know that. There's permit services out there. They pay between $25 and $50 a permit over the top of what the permit actually costs. But they can get you your permits for you, but you still have to know how to read them. You still got to sit down and say, okay, this is the route. I have to stay on this route. And we see it day in and day out. I mean, we make mistakes. We've been doing this forever and we still make mistakes, but you got to be smart enough to stop what you're doing. When you make the mistake, to stop and pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I made a mistake. How do I get out of this? So you can get back on route.
And then speaking of costs, could we go into a little bit into the numbers of maybe not the difference, but what you know of heavy haul compared to regular freight? How much do you maybe spend on fuel, tires, insurance, maintenance per week or per month? However you would like to paint us a picture of how those numbers.
Okay, this is real simple. If right now pulling regular freight, you're spending, let's say, $2,000 a week in fuel, double it. Just know what you're pulling freight for, where you're getting between 5.5 and 6.5, some of them 7 miles to the gallon. Those days are gone. Yeah. They're gone because my older truck, it gets with just general freight, light load, it probably gets 6 miles to the gallon. Okay. My T680s, which are newer, they probably get 6.5 to 7 when they're just with regular freight. We throw an oversize on there, it cuts in half. I mean, my big W9, it goes down to 4 miles to the gallon. The T680 is probably down to 5. So your fuel is going to double. Your insurance, the minute you tell your insurance agent you're going to go haul oversize, it's going to cost you more. Can't tell you what it is because, again, we've been doing this forever. We have a great safety rating, great safety record, and so we get a pretty good rate on our insurance. Your maintenance is going to go up because you're making the truck do more than what it was before.
What would you say is one expense people may underestimate can go very high when you're doing heavy haul?
Oh, tires. They underestimate what they're going to spend it, and fuel. I mean, they think that, they jump out of pulling even a regular flatbed loads. They go into it and they think, okay, I'm going to get, I'm getting 6 miles to the gallon pulling this flatbed. I can make bank on pulling oversize. No, you can't. Tires. And one of the biggest reasons for the tires is we go to a lot of job sites, a lot. Yeah. So we're not on asphalt, concrete, and what have you all the time. We're in dirt. We're in mud. We go into job sites that have concrete and stuff, but guess what? You're avoiding a whole lot of stuff. So you end up with a nail in a tire. Yeah. Or you end up blowing a tire.
When somebody comes to you, a new client comes to BAR Transportation, how do you price risk when you're moving a high value or high security load?
Well, simply, if my liability as a carrier goes up, so does their price. Because I am not going to price something that's worth $5 million that is 35 foot long, 14 wide, and 14 and a half foot on my trailer, the same as I would do the same dimensions on something worth $200,000, because my liability goes way up. I have to go to the insurance company. I have to get different insurance. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is involved with a high value load or high security load. I know guys that do it, and they, it doesn't matter. It's this for this size, this for this size, this for this size. And it doesn't matter what the price is or what its value is. But what happens when their driver pulls into a truck stop and he's taking up 2 spaces because he's so wide, and a van driver comes in and thinks that he can fit between the truck and the load, even though you're taking up almost two parking spots, and he backs into it. Well, there it goes.
We have the price for high value and oversized loads, but then we have to add extreme weather conditions. What lessons have stuck with you about knowing when to shut it down versus push through?
Yeah, that's simple. Shut down early, especially with an oversize, because the truck stops fill up fast. You're wide, high, whatever it happens to be, you're going to take up more space. So you have to get into the truck stop early. If you wait till the weather's bad, the truck stops are full, the rest areas are full. Everybody's trying to park at once. Now you're stuck looking for somewhere pulling a 14-foot wide load, in the snow or in a bad rainstorm or whatever it happens to be. And the next thing you have to think of is, what if I'm not on the interstate? What if I'm out in the back roads of Kansas or Missouri? What do you do then? Well, they have parking areas. They have, there's little truck stops and stuff that you can park at. But what we've learned is, a lot of times when we're out in those areas, we look for grain elevators. Grain elevators are a great place to park. Most guys that do what we do, they are very prepared for having to park in the middle of nowhere with no services. So we carry extra food, extra blankets, extra everything, so that if you get stuck out in the middle of nowhere and there's nowhere to eat, you don't have to drop your trailer. Maybe you can't drop your trailer. Maybe it's a high value load, and go somewhere, find something to eat, and then turn around and come back to your trailer. So it's the key is to get off the road safely and get off the road early if you're going to be getting into bad weather.
And then, speaking of the drivers who are moving these loads, we already talked about the people we don't want, who are the know-it-all mindsets. But you, as a fleet owner, what do you look for when bringing on drivers for specialized freight?
Experience, and lots of it. Somebody, again, that can take criticism, that will learn from not only their mistakes that they've made in the past, or our mistakes that we've made in the past. Because again, you're constantly learning here. I mean, because almost no 2 loads are the same. Even if it's the same product, something is different about it, and you're going to have to secure it different. We don't hire the normal truck drivers that are just seat warmers here. We just don't do it. They just don't have the mindset for the job. We get calls all the time from guys that say, "Hey, I want to learn oversize." Okay, great. I'm glad you do, but you can't do it here.
Yeah.
Go to one of the larger companies and get them to teach you how to do it. Get you 3 to 5 years under your belt with everything from 9 wide all the way up to 15 wide, and over height and overweight. And then call me, and then we might talk to you. This work will chew you up and spit you out and not even think twice about it. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and it still kicks my butt.
How important is safety and documentation when hauling oversized loads, especially during inspections or roadside stops?
When you're pulling oversized loads, number one, if there is an open scale, you have to go into it. Plain and simple. So you just get it in your mind right from the beginning when you start doing this, that every time I pull into the scale, I'm going to get inspected. Now, is it just, are they just going to inspect your permit?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Most of the time, yes.
Mm.
But you know, like Arizona and New Mexico and Wyoming and a few of the other states, Utah, you pull into the scale, you pull around back, they come out with a tape measure, height stick, whatever they need for that load, and they will measure you. And you better hope everything is right, because if something ain't right, that's going to lead to more question. And then a possible level 2, level 1, or they'll pull your permit and you have to reorder another permit.
You've mentioned many, many years of experience. Can you share with us one load or one situation that changed how you approached planning and preparation forever?
Oh, yeah. This was last year before last? I was hauling a 15.7 wide out of Texas over to South Carolina. I read my permit. I always do. And I missed a part in the South Carolina permit that said that you can only travel between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. I went skating through, and I had a pilot car, and I actually had 2 pilot cars, and we all missed it. And we went rolling up through South Carolina Sunday around noon. We got pulled over, which we should have. He pulled us over. Then he had us go up to the rest area, and he could have been a bear over it because we were illegal. Yeah. But he actually did a level 1 on my truck and trailer. My stuff passed with flying colors. And I think that is the only reason he did not pull my permit and did not write me a ticket, was because all of my stuff was correct. I had a human day and I missed one little part.
I did hear you mention it earlier in the interview about curfews, and I'm like, what is he talking about? I did not know there are certain hours.
Yeah. Okay. So most states have a curfew, a regular curfew, which is you cannot travel. It's either a half an hour before sunrise, at sunrise, or like Georgia is a half hour after sunrise. You can't be on the road, and you have to shut down a half an hour either before, during, or after sunset.
Uh-huh.
All right. And then you have cities that you can't travel in between earlier than 9 a.m. unless the sun, 7 to 9, and then usually somewhere between 4 and 6 in the evening. You can travel, if you can travel at night, you can travel before that early morning, or if the sun comes up at, like in the summer at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, you can get out of the city before the 6 a.m. curfew. Mm-hmm. And then the same goes for if you're going into a big city and it's getting close to 4 o'clock, you have to shut down. But if there's sunlight after that, then you can go through after the curfew's up. So that's just a little bit about curfews. They also have frost curfews. They have school curfews. I mean, there's just a lot to know. And your permit tells you all of this.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I'd like to know a bit more for the owner-operators who are listening to this right now and want to grow beyond one truck. What did scaling look for you? What do you do differently if you were starting bar transportation now?
When we started with just my truck and me. And then we started growing a little bit, adding a truck here, adding a truck there. But then I got the wild hair one day and decided that I needed to add 4. I think it was 4 all at once. Boy, that was a mistake. I mean, it worked out for a time, but sooner or later it's going to come back to bite you. And it did. We scaled up, and then a few years later we had to scale back. Got rid of our drivers that were causing us issues, and we got rid of trucks that were causing issues, and then we just didn't replace them. And it worked out it actually worked out our benefit because that was when freight started tanking. And so that was one of the reasons that we decided to go ahead and do it. So if you're deciding to scale up, you need to make sure that you know that you have the business and the drivers to do it. You don't add the trucks and then go out and find the drivers. To do it right, you need to find the right drivers and already know where you're going to get your truck and your trailer, but don't go buy it until you have the drivers pretty much ready to go in the truck. Scaling is hard to do. These days, it's hard to do. Used to, you could do it. You just go out and buy 4 or 5 trucks, and it didn't cost you hardly anything to have them sitting in the yard while you're trying to find drivers. These days is completely different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Most of the conversations I've heard or we've had roll around that. Maybe they have the equipment, but not the drivers to get the job done.
Right. And that's where everybody's messing up these days is they got a yard full of trucks, but what good is it to have the trucks if they're doing nothing but sitting? And that's where a lot of companies get into this. I got to throw a driver in there.
Now, going into the most exciting part of this interview for me is I wanted to ask you about your book, Frozen Freight. And I know from what I've read, it's built on real-life trucking experiences. What would you say are parts of the industry people from outside the trucking industry still don't understand about it?
Most people think trucking is just driving point A to point B. I don't care what kind of truck or what kind of trailer you're dragging. That is absolutely not the case. It is not the case. That's the smallest part of our job is to the driving part. It's everything else that goes along with it. What they don't see is everything that happens long before we turn a key, or what's supposed to happen long before we turn a key. The logistics, figuring out routes, permits, load placement, the regulatory pressure. That's the biggie these days. We cross 3 different states. All 3 states have a different rule book that we need to know. The risk management. What do I do if this bridge is closed that they got us routed across? The mechanical decisions, something breaks at 2:00 in the afternoon and you have to get it fixed, or do I try to fix it myself? And the consequences when something goes wrong. I mean, because in this industry, mistakes don't just cost you money. They can shut down factories. They can cost people their jobs, and sometimes they can cost people their lives. One of the reasons it took me 30 years to write this book, I've been thinking about it for probably 30 years. Number one, I'm not an author. I'm a truck driver. So I just sat down one day and started putting pen to paper, and I had the whole thing wrote. I mean, it was, and a lot of it is on my experiences that I have from 30 years of trucking. It is everything in the book is what could happen in real life. A lot of things that have happened to me throughout my trucking career is in the book. In some way, it's in the book. It's a fiction book, but I kept Hollywood out of it. Everything is applicable to what a truck driver actually goes through. Everything that happens in there is physically possible to be done with a truck. If I just wrote it as if everything that I did day to day, it would be a boring book and nobody would want to read it. So there are some exciting things that go on in there that, could it happen? Yes, it could. To me, it was a fun project. As a matter of fact, I've got book 1, it's at the publisher, and I've already got book 2 wrote.
Awesome.
So, and as soon as here in a couple of weeks, I go back to writing on book 2 just to finish it up, polish it up, and then I'm starting book 3.
Really excited to read it.
Well, I will make sure you get a copy as soon as they come off the printers.
Amazing. Can you let our listeners know when it will be released? I will for sure leave a link for it in the description of our video so everybody can get it.
there was a bunch of editing that had to be redone. Because again, I'm not an author, I'm a truck driver. So the original published date was going to be February the 1st. We had to push it off about 3 weeks because the publisher just got it back Sunday, and they are beginning their final polish. I'm not sure exactly what they do, but they do all their stuff. And then she said about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
She said at the longest, probably March the 1st. And I'm going to have it out on Amazon. You can also go to my website, and on the Bar Transportation website, and there's a link. There is a page on there for my book. If you go in there, you can actually send me an email through that, and I will put you on the list. And everybody that I get on my mailer list will get the first copies to come out, and I will sign every one of them and send them out. We're going to try to get them into some of the truck stops. It is, it's all self-published stuff for me, because being a first-time author, the big publishing houses aren't even going to look at me. So anyway, and this is a series of books.
That's so exciting.
I hope in 5 or 6 books, maybe 10 books. I don't know. It just depends on what I can get the guys to do.
Yeah, that's great. I've learned through this short time recording podcasts and having conversations with truckers that I have the most interesting conversations with truckers, and they have the best stories and the weirdest stories and the craziest stories. So I'm very excited for your book.
Anyway, I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm having a lot of fun continuing it. And my wife is very much behind me doing it, because she said that this is, basically between the Army, trucking, when I got my pilot's license, and a couple other little projects here and there that I do. She said, this keeps my brain working other than just on trucking.
Yeah, for sure. And the creativity flowing.
Yes. She said she always knew I was full of crap. Now that the book to prove it.
Amazing. Awesome. JR, if you had one piece of advice to give to small carriers so they can survive the current freight markets and maybe grow, what would it be?
Number 1, don't grow. Don't. Save your money. You're going to need it. You're going to need it. Be smart. Get rid of all the stuff you don't need. All of it. It doesn't matter what it is, personal or business. It doesn't matter. If you don't need to spend the money, don't, because you're going to need it for your business. If you want to survive, you got to streamline. That's all there is to it. Get rid of bad drivers. Get rid of bad equipment. Anything that's costing you a lot of money, get rid of it. If you don't have a good stable of guys that are always getting you hit on your CSA scores, stuff like that, get rid of them. Find somebody to put in the truck that's actually going to help you succeed. That's the key. The guys I have, they've all been with me for 10 or 15 years. Every one of them. Okay. Because they want to retire here. So they help me succeed.
Yeah.
They help me make sure that my equipment stays up. No accidents, no damages. They are as vested in this company as me and my wife. The market's starting to change. It's starting to. It's not there yet, but it's starting to change. We're starting to see upticks in rates. That can change in literally a split second. It can turn from a carrier market back to a shipper market in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And you have to position yourself for whenever that happens. So just be smart, stay lean, stay ready. Don't get greedy. That's the key. Don't get greedy.
Awesome. Everything you've shared today is amazing to me. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, but I do appreciate you choosing me out of all the people that you had choices to choose off LinkedIn and allowing me to do this. I appreciate it. It's pretty exciting for me because I don't normally get to tell a whole lot of people what to do and how to do it. I do not ever admit to being the best businessman out there, but I have learned over the years with my mistakes and mistakes of people that I trust, mentors that I have, their mistakes. I learned from mistakes. I learned from working hard, and that's how you learn. You can't learn this out of a book. You can't. I mean, you can start it out of a book, but then you have to start using your God-given mind to do it right.
Yes. JR, thank you so much for joining me. Your insights have been so important for that key point. I think the years of experiences that you have under your belt are amazing, and it really shows in how you shared everything today. For everyone watching, remember to subscribe to our newsletter. We send you out weekly tips, market analysis, and what the hottest markets are looking like per equipment type. We also send you the best stories from the road right to your inbox. So you can find the sign up link in the description below. Don't forget to leave us your thoughts or your comments and questions if you have any for JR. I'll be sure to email them back to him if you have any questions about the heavy haul world. We'll be sure to ask all your questions back to him. And before we wrap it up, if you're an owner, operator, or small carrier running under your own authority and cash flow is something you're trying to get under control, I'll leave a link in the description for a factoring service that has same-day pay, no hidden fees, and a real customer support. Yes, someone to always answer the phone for you. Just a simple tool to help you keep your trucks moving and your business steady. Don't forget to subscribe to This Week in Trucking to learn more about the industry and never miss conversations like this one with JR with actual industry experts.